Just who do you think are the two biggest brands in college football?
I think that Michigan has an outrageous brand internationally, and it kind of encompasses
Mhm.
more the university as a whole, not just athletically, and then even athletically, more so a little bit
Mhm.
of basketballs, more of a because of the Fab Five and
Mhm.
everything since then, than like let's say Ohio State, which is just football.
Yeah.
Basketball program's been good, but it's football.
Mhm.
If boy, I think that's a close call. I'll tell you who's in my head: Notre
Mhm.
Dame, Ohio State, USC, Alabama.
Really? No Texas in there. No love for the horns. I always just thought it was Notre Dame, Texas for this
At
one.
some point in Texas is a big blue blood, great tradition.
Mhm.
I don't have to go through the history, but at some point 12, 13 years, that's a pretty good chunk of history right there. And the most
Mhm.
recent history for Texas is they suck. So, like, I don't think we could go to TV ratings and show where Texas is drawing large crowds of TV viewers other than playing Oklahoma.
Okay. I mean, I just thought that because of the Longhorn Network, which might be a big flop in the Pac-12 network.
Yeah, it's a non-factor.
But yeah, like me and Jareel MVP, we were feuding over like who's a bigger brand, Notre Dame or Ohio State for football. I mean, it's close, but like I would still lean. I mean, I'm not being biased here, but like I think like if you ask like someone who the biggest brand was, like if you ask someone like an average sports fan, like I don't know, like I always thought Notre Dame would be the biggest college football brand, but
It might also depend on their age.
yeah, fair, fair.
You ask your average 20-year-old, like my son's 25 years old, and up until last year's Ohio State Michigan game, I couldn't convince him how enormous the game is, how important. He's always like, Michigan sucks. Why this is not important. Michigan
Mhm,
State beats us more than they do. Wisconsin's
mhm,
like he grew up watching college football like post 2008. So his thought was Michigan's no good. They're not really not that good.
mhm.
And so why do you make such a big he knew why there was such a big
Yeah.
deal made out of the game, but he didn't live it. So he understood that back before he was around,
Mhm.
there was a war waging back and forth and the series was equal back and
Mhm,
forth. But to him, and so it depends on how much history is appreciated by that individual.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, I started watching in 2007, so I thought about the same. Like, I always
But
just
you
thought, like,
obviously you're a Notre Dame fan.
yeah,
Why?
because I was born in a Irish Catholic family.
Okay. So there's an obvious tie there.
Yeah.
And then because of that, you've also, not because of that, but because you're a ardent college football fan,
Mhm.
you've learned about the history
Mhm.
and the greatness of Notre Dame.
Mhm. Like, my dad really became a fan because, like, he went to a small school and they didn't have a football team. And, like, him and, like, his buddies were, like, Notre Dame fans, and then like his freshman year of college was 1988. So like he just grew up his freshman year, like with all of his buddies. Got him into Notre Dame, and then yeah,
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. My
yeah,
son took on all of my teams. My
mm-hmm,
son was born in Mississippi because that's where I had a broadcasting
mm-hmm,
job, and then we moved to Connecticut. And he's never lived in Ohio his entire life, but he's a Browns fan, Indians fan, Buckeyes fan because that's what I put Ohio State jerseys on them from
mm-hmm,
he and his sister from the time they were babies. So
mm-hmm,
that's who they root for and still do.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and like one of my first big road trips was when I was 8 years old. I went. We took the long drive to South Bend, and like immediately, like I was knew I was going to be a fan for life when the players came out of the Basilica, and I was like, a big time Golden Tate fan, and then Golden Tate gave me a high five, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna pass out.
So you and the real MVP were battling back and forth. He says Ohio State.
He said is the biggest brand in college football. Like, but I just feel like the team that would, if any team were to sell the TV rating, like a TV deal, I feel like Notre Dame would get the bigger deal because they have more fans.
Who do you think who had more people watch their games last year?
Well, I mean, the Ohio State-Michigan game, I think
you want me to read this off. I've been using this site a lot, making videos over the last week.
I mean, I feel like the Ohio State-Michigan game just tips it for Ohio State because Notre Dame.
We'll take that out of it.
Was bad. Like if USC was as good as Michigan was, I feel like it would be this.
We'll take that game out of it. Okay. All right. Now this has nothing to do with Ohio State playing in the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl is the Rose Bowl. Yeah. We'll forget that. We'll go to the regular season. Okay. This is even eliminating the Ohio State-Michigan game, which was the most watched college football game in the regular season last year. Who'd Notre Dame play the last weekend? They played Stanford, 2.7 million.
Well, Stanford, like the thing is, like Notre Dame had a weak schedule. Like I feel like if we had a decent schedule, like.
Okay. Do you have any other excuses?
I'm sounding like a Michigan fan. I'm sorry. I'm sounding like a Michigan fan with all the excuses.
Who did Notre Dame play the second to last? I'm trying to find the Notre Dame game. So Ohio State, Michigan State was the second most watched game of the week. 5.3 million. Notre Dame and Georgia Tech, 1.4 million. So 4 times more people watched Ohio State, Michigan State than Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. I understand Georgia Tech's
Georgia Tech's awful.
Okay. The week before, Ohio State and Purdue was the third most Ohio State and Purdue, the third most watched game of the week, behind just Michigan, Penn State, and Georgia, Tennessee.
Can you compare the Ohio State Purdue to Notre Dame Purdue? Can you just compare that?
There we go. This is how many people watched Ohio State Purdue. 4.73 million. Let me find the Notre Dame game. They played them early. What week would that have been? Maybe like week. You got a guess for me? I'm trying to find the game.
I'm going week 4.
3?
Week 4.
Week 3. Oh, I found it. Okay. Ohio State Purdue, 4.7 million. Notre Dame Purdue, 2.5 million.
All right. Wow. I have to wave the white flag then.
Ohio State didn't play Wisconsin, so we can't compare that. I guess that would be it. The only game we can compare like opponents.
Gosh darn it, to real MVP. Oh, that's painful.
It's only one game, but believe me, more people watched Ohio State play football than any team in the country in the regular season. I'm just looking at week to week. When Ohio State played Nebraska, it was the most Nebraska. 3-9.
I mean, Nebraska has a big fan base.
They do, but that was the most watched game of the week. If Ohio State was not playing Maryland or Rutgers, their game was typically in the top 3 every week.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean,
not
it just
everything.
sucks that this is what happened.